Okay, here's a thought for Saturday morning. I was thinking about how, as I've gotten a little bit older, you see people that are younger than you, and you know, you can clearly see that they don't have a lot of experience, or there's things that they just don't know about the world yet, or relationships, or people. And I think as you become older, you get more perspective, you understand people a little bit better, and then you just don't really care. Like you don't care as much about what someone thinks about you. You're not, you talk to less people, so you don't have that big social, desire to be just liked by everyone and be in the groups and everything. And that's kind of the social upbringing, at least here, and I think in a lot of places where you're around the same group of people. Everyone wants to be popular or liked, or at least most people do. And then as you get older, all that changes, right? You spend less time with people, you spend kind of more time doing the same thing, and there's bigger age differences. Some people get married, some people have kids, some people move to Alaska. People are doing a million different things. So you kind of fall out of touch with most people, and you realize, geez, I'm really kind of by myself in this journey. And the only people that I'm really going to get talk a lot to or be involved with are people that you really want in your life. They're not just kind of bystanders, unless it's really even people that you work with. You don't have to interact with them that much if you don't want to. You have to go to work with them maybe and do certain things, but that's about it, right? So you're kind of the gatekeeper now of who you want to let into your life. And I think a lot of people, they that circle becomes smaller. Certainly for me it was never really that big, but uh, as you get older, there's just, like I said, people have different responsibilities. They don't necessarily just want to hang out with you and do things. When you're growing up and you're a teenager or even younger, all you really thought about was your friends and, you know, hanging out with them and what you were going to do after school, because there wasn't any other options. You know, that's another interesting thing just about options is when you don't have a lot of things that you can do, it's very easy to like focus on just doing one thing. Like I remember when I was younger, I just wanted to play video games like a lot because that was the only thing I could do. I didn't have a car. I didn't have the ability to go do anything else. I didn't have a like something I was working on. I couldn't really go explore things, and the only thing that I really wanted to do, because school was maybe boring or whatever, was like, hey, I was really into this video game and I wanted to play that. And I think that's common for probably people growing up. You just don't have a lot of back in the day maybe it was going out and riding your bike and hanging out with your friends, and then maybe as technology took over it became you know video games and whatever, talking to your friends on whatever social media device people or site people use now. But you know you don't really become a well-rounded person, I think, until you get older and you have more perspective, because you haven't been through things, you haven't experienced things, and you're just kind of young and naive and very green. You don't really know a whole lot about how the way the world works, because you do live in kind of a not a utopia, but just a it's kind of a fake reality. When you're in school, like you're in the same city, you see the same couple hundred or thousand people like your whole first 20 years of your life or 18 years of your life. And then you get out of that system and you realize this isn't the way the real world is. This is like a fake kind of experiment here where you're going to school 8 hours a day with the same people. And then once you get out of that system, the real world's a lot different. So, uh, I don't know. That's kind of my thought on it. I think I think there's a lot better things you could have been doing than going to school every day for 18 years with the same group of people, kind of doing the same things. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people, once they get out of that system, they're like, well, I don't really know what to do. I've never really, hey girl, I've never really I wasn't equipped maybe with the ability to know what to do. I've always been told what to do. I had to go to school my whole life. I had these teachers telling me, this is the homework you have to do. Don't say this, raise your hand. There are all these rules, right? You never really learn to do anything on your own, at least in the public education system. You're just you're just being talked to, you're being told what to do, complete these assignments, do it by this date. And so unless you get that from like outside of school, like, hey, I want to do this, I want to start this, I want to go out and meet all these different people, I'd say most people aren't doing that. And so when they get out of high school, they have like a shock. Sometimes that lasts maybe a year, sometimes it's just a month, sometimes it can be a long time, where they're like, geez, I don't know where I'm going to put my energy, because all my energy has been basically put into this funnel of going to school and just doing what I was told. And now I'm in the real world. And so what do? Society's telling me to go to college maybe, so that I can have a decent future, or at least that's what I was sold. But is that the best option for me, or should I do something else? So again, that's the thing about options, is when people have a lot of different options, they just don't decide, or it becomes increasingly difficult to choose an option because there's too many, right? Am I going to go to school? Can I join the military? Should I start my own business? Should I go work down the street? Should I become a plumber? Should I become a musician? Should I become a writer? Do I want to go travel for a little bit? Do I want to get married? Do I want to pursue a relation? Like, there's so many things, right? I think back previous generations, people maybe didn't have as much options, or at least the perception of having so many options. So they just were like, oh, I'm going to the military, or oh, I'm going to join my dad's plumbing business, or oh, I'm going to go get my PhD in nuclear physics or whatever, right? They made a choice and they just stuck with it. Nowadays, I think people are overwhelmed with the amount of choices, and they don't really know how it's going to work out. And they're scared of going maybe into really big debt. They're scared about, how am I going to support myself if I, housing with costs going up so much. And if you think about it, why would you want to go to school if at the end of that whole experience, you're 4 years older, 4 or 5 years older, you have what I would say is maybe a worthless degree, and then at the end of it, you don't even know if you're going to have a job. And at the end of it, you might have been able to get the job that you had at the end of the 4 years without even going to school. So the only difference is you spent 4 years going like $100,000 into debt. You could have had the same job maybe at either time, So I think that's good that people can realize, hey, unless I'm doing something very specific and it's going to have a good light at the end of the tunnel in terms of a career or, compensation, I'm not going to go to school. I don't want to burden myself with being so much in debt and then have a job that doesn't pay very well. It's going to be very, very stressful. Plus, you got to pay housing. It's like the biggest regressive tax ever, right? Because people that have houses from 20 years ago or 30 years ago, low, maybe it's paid off, but they got a low monthly payment. It's basically all been inflated away over the years. So even if they were paying 6% interest rate, the monthly payment was probably a lot less because the house was less. So now people that don't have anything today, they either have to pay, younger people, they have to pay really high rents for just a really basic place to live. Or if they want to buy a house, they have to save up such a big amount of money. But that's really hard to do when you don't make good money, right? Like, hey, I went to school, I'm supposed to be making good money, but I'm $100,000 in debt. I'm 4 years older. I don't have a great job. I don't have a place to live. If I want to buy a house, I have to make 3 times as much money. I need to have a 20% down payment. I don't have any of that stuff, right? Because the price of housing has far exceeded the wage increase of just the middle class. And so it looks very bleak. I don't know what the answer is. I think you have to, obviously you have to build more housing units. People have to probably not a lot of people want to go into the trades, right? It's become like uh, oh, you're a plumber or you're a carpenter or you're a framer. No one really, that wasn't like a glamorous thing. They'd rather go to college and get a degree in business or whatever. And that's, what are you going to do with that? Can you build a house? We need housing units. No, no one can do that, right? So there's a limited supply of people that can do that. The prices of everything have gone up, and just a starter house or a starter situation, many people are delaying that. They're not having kids at a young age. They're not getting married at a young age because they're scared, and that's the normal reaction. Why would I want to have a family or have kids if I don't even? It's like, hey, I don't have a place. I don't have a consistent roof over my head. Maybe I don't make incredibly good money. I'm worried about the consistency maybe of the job I'm going to have, and so I don't feel comfortable bringing in a spouse or potential kids into that financial situation because it's going to be difficult. In the past, things were, I, I don't know if they were easier or harder. I don't know, but it was more simple, I think, to get involved. Like you could just basically get a normal job and you could afford a starter house, a car, not to say that it was easy, but families seem to be forming at a much earlier age. Nowadays with the internet, you know, whether it's men and women or just both of them, people kind of want to do everything. They don't necessarily want to commit to anything or anyone. They want to experience it all, and then they always, of course, think that they're just going to have time, when it comes to settling down. Some of them might, but most of them don't. If you reach, for women, it's you can't have you like you can't literally have kids past a certain age, like if you wanted to be a mother. So now that there's more women working, it's, hey, I want to have a career, and then I'll maybe want to settle down and have kids. But if you wait too long to do that, you biologically are not going to be able to do that. So you focus on your career, and then by the time you're 35 or older, it might not be possible to have kids, or you might not want to have them anymore, or maybe there's not a guy that you feel is up to your standards. And I saw a video or two on that. It was so interesting how women are natural hypergamists. Like they want to date people that they see as at least equal to them or higher. So some of it's how you look, some of it's your height, some of it's your status, how much money you make, the things you have, like your job, the resources that you can provide. Almost all women always want to be with a guy that's at least equal or above to them on that scale. But the amount of guys that are qualified are dropping because there's more women that are working and more women that are going to school and more women that are making more money than more men. But women always want to date a guy that's better than them. So there's a huge pool of women that are going after the same guys pretty much. And if you're not a guy that's relatively good looking, has a good situation, makes good money, and is charismatic and all that stuff, it's not worth your time, I would say, because they're always going to be on the hunt for someone better than you, or there's always a risk that they'll be attracted to someone at a higher status than you. That's just the way it works. I mean, that's just nature, right? But it used to be that there wasn't women. There wasn't so many higher quality women. Like most women didn't have a really high paying job and were making more money than men. In the past, women kind of needed to latch onto a guy because they didn't make a lot of money and they needed a guy for financial support. Not to say that that's good or bad. That's just the way it was. Now, women will kind of look at a guy and they'll say, well, he doesn't make as much money as me, so I'm not interested. Or he's not that good looking, but so I'm not interested. So there's a lot of reasons why the women would potentially not be interested. So they're basically going after the same kind of smaller pool of guys. And so if you're in that pool of guys, you're constantly getting attention. They're always making time to want to be with you. They'll do anything when you ask them. They'll drop. It's funny how it is. Like, I've talked to girls that, I wouldn't say a ton, but it's funny how they'll make excuses or they won't want to be with you. I used to think that was like, oh, they actually just had stuff to do, but it's not. If they actually wanted to be with you, they would make time for you, right? But if they don't want to be with you, they're only going to want to hang out with you when it's convenient for them, or when they're going to get something out of it, when they're going to get a dinner, or when they're going to be able to go to the movies, or when they're going to be able to use something that your family has that's going to benefit them, right? They're only going to want to hang out with you when it's convenient for them. So I didn't realize that when I was younger, because I just thought, oh, geez, if they're talking to me at all, they must, at least want to spend time with me. That's not true. So I don't know what's going to happen. I think women kind of have unrealistic expectations of what they deserve or what they think they deserve. The reality is, there's like the type of guy that these women want is such a small percentage of what's out there, but basically 80% of women thinks they can get like 10 or 20% of the guys, and the math just doesn't work. There's not enough guys that are good looking, tall, fit, make a lot of money, are very charismatic, have a nice house, have a great job, are very well. I mean, it's just so small, that amount of guys. But even if they get attention one time from one of these guys, they think that, oh, that's what I deserve, and I'm not going to settle for anything less. So most average guys, or just even above average guys, have been dismissed. They won't even really get considered. And then I think for a lot of women, it's not really their fault. I mean, they're going to find out when they're older, no one really wanted to commit. Maybe they'll get lucky and have someone commit to them, but they're going to find out as they get older, like, oh, maybe a lot of the way that I was treated was based on the way I looked and how young I was. And now that I'm older, there's less and less guys that are paying attention to me. There's certainly less guys that are willing to commit to me. And it's like a slice of humble pie. But you don't know that. When you're a young woman, that's your world. How would you know that things are going to get worse for you? You wouldn't. So you're only living in the present, So if everything's going good in your life and you have all this attention from guys and you get hit on all the time and it's easy for you to get into conversations with guys, you just feel like that's your reality. But that's really only your reality because you're young, you're good looking, you don't have a lot of baggage, you turn the heads of a lot of guys, and a lot of guys are interested in you. So you kind of have the pick of the litter. Unfortunately, if they don't use that to their advantage, then they end up getting older and their options end up shrinking. And then I think a lot of them just will never settle because they still have that built into their head that I don't want to settle. I need this type of guy, and I'm just going to wait till that guy's available. And then you're 45 years old, even 35 years old, and you're alone because your expectations are crazy. It's like, you're not young. You're not, just an easygoing person. You're not as good looking. You're not as easy to get along with. You don't have anything. Guys don't really care about, what are you bringing financially, or what are you bringing to the table in terms of helping out in that respect. But you don't even have that, right? So, but they don't have that perspective. So everyone has to go through that point where they get older and they realize my value has changed to the other sex. But it's interesting because so many women think that they're just always going to have this really high value, and that it's the guy's fault for not wanting them. But in reality, like, women want what they want and men want what they want. It's like, it's programmed in for most of us. And so there's always younger women that are there. And as a woman gets older and she doesn't settle down with someone, the pool of guys that are willing to commit to a 28, 29, 30, 35, 37-year-old women goes drastically down. You know, because now a guy has options and he'd rather go with a younger woman for various reasons, right? Younger, easier going, doesn't maybe have incredibly strong opinions on everything, isn't tied 100% to a career, you know, has more time to do things, is easygoing, you know. That's kind of what guys want. Someone that's kind of a follower, not someone that's going to be arguing and complaining and have very strong opinions on everything and telling you that you're wrong and this is the way we need to be doing things. Again, some guys might like that, but that's not the majority of men. But women are becoming more of that type, especially as they get older. I can't blame them. They're in a career. They're being competitive. They have more male traits kind of than they historically have, where they're being competitive, dominant, you know, do it my way, I'm the boss. And then they bring that to the relationship. And what they're going to find out is that most guys that they are going to want to settle down with are not going to like that. They might get a guy that is kind of like just a yes man, but they're not really going to like that guy because they won't respect him. Any guy that has his head on straight is not going to put up with a bunch of bullshit from a woman, right? I mean, yes, you're partners and this and that, but any sort of being overly competitive and arguing, if you don't squash that, you know, the women's not going to respect you, right? You have to stand up for yourself and kind of be the leader. That is what they're biologically designed to want. But it becomes harder for them as they get older because there's a shrinking amount of guys that are going to even want to deal with a woman like that, especially as she gets older. So I kind of went on a tangent. I don't know. It always goes back to that. All these videos pop up. It's just the truth about optionality. The more options you have, it becomes harder to choose. If you have one or two options, it becomes easier to choose. And let me know what you think. Have a good day. See you on the next one.